Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man last seen hanging about in the sewers of Vivec City.
Tim Longo. That is very true.
I went there this week, and it's...
Oh, you did?
Oh my goodness, it's a lot. It is a lot.
It could be a game by itself, to be honest. I mean,
it took me a while to figure out, like, oh, you can go, like, if you go around, the corner, you'll find the stairs to go up, and come. Like, it took me a while even just to get the multiple layers thing and how to get between them. It was
the building design itself for each of those buildings is not the greatest. There's a lot of 180 turns and things that don't.
Oh yeah, totally. Every time I'm going down to try to get back to the silt strider, I'm like, oh man, I'm going west or I'm going east. I want to be going west. Like, what's going to happen? Okay, no, I'm going down a ramp, so it should be okay because I'm going to come around. Then I'm going to turn a 180, and this might be okay. Or I'll be like I don't know where I'm going. I'm trying to get to St. Olms, and I'm not entirely sure where that is. Also, sometimes the map identifier doesn't change when you cross a bridge. It kind of changes later. It's like there's some overlap or some update that happens at a lower frequency. So sometimes I'm like, okay, where am I? Not really where. I know I'm not in the arena anymore. Where actually am I? Yeah. And I'll keep walking, and then I'll check the map. I was like, okay, it's refreshed. I'm in Redoran now. Okay, I know where I need to go to get back to the 4 1/4. Woof.
So why did you go there? I mean, did we say we're talking about Morrowind?
We're talking about Morrowind. It's a lot. I'm trying to think what I think I had a specific... Oh, I know what it was. I was in the Fighters Guild, and nobody would give me any more quests in Balmora. And they were like, well, you might want to check... And they wouldn't advance me, so they're like, well, you might want to check in, XYZ, these other locations. And Vivec City was one of them, and I was like, well, Tim's been there. I should go see what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And, boy, did I. I mean, I've been a number of places now, and there's been a lot of sort of interesting distinction between the geography, but also showing up in a place and it's in the middle of a sandstorm.
Oh, wow.
And, sand is just blowing, and it just feels like, oh, that's what this place is about. But then you'll come back 2 days later and there's no sandstorm, and you're like, oh, this is not the sandstorm place. I just happened to be here in a sandstorm the first time I came.
Yeah.
And it's just wild.
Yeah. I found lava yesterday too. I was I was just walking and there's these steam pits and geysers and stuff, and then some lava just was on the side of the road, lava. And I was like, wow.
You find a lot of that in the dwarven ruins as well.
Cool. Okay.
Because they use a lot of geothermal power to power their various mystical devices. A lot of steam. A lot of punky steam.
Got it. There. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Vivec.
So I got to see what you were talking about. Yeah, but I want to hear about your continuing adventures. Which section were you in when you were looking for the
Morag Tong?
The Morag Tong, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it some last episode, but there's once you're looking for them, there's the dialogue option for various NPCs you talk to kind of get more information about them, and occasionally some of them will give you clues about where they are, and ultimately they end up being below the arena building.
Oh, right.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And I did find, so I think last episode I did mention that I found what I thought was probably the right trap door. Literally you go into a storage room below there, which, call out to arena because that was the name of the first game. I don't know if there's an arena in every one of these games, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I think there was one in every one but Skyrim.
Irony. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, because it was something we talked about, do we have to have an arena?
Yeah.
And I know some effort was expended on it. So not tons and tons, but somebody spent some time designing like a typical sort of arena, series of champion challenges type deal.
Yeah. I mean, there's one in KOTOR, I think, too. I mean, there's like all these RPGs seem to have one.
Yeah. The Assassin's Creed I just finished had one. So yeah, I mean, it's very common.
Anyway, yeah. There's a series of storerooms down there. It's not as low as the sewers themselves, but it's like the level right above the sewers, which I think is called the Wasteworks. And then there's the Underworks, and like I've spent so much time in Vivec City, like I know a lot about that place. And and I've probably done like 10 quests just in the city, like I hadn't left. But but thanks to your tip on it, didn't I didn't even occur to me that there could have been a magical knock kind of spell that I could get, which I did. I just accidentally happened to find somebody who had that spell, and I bought the spell, and I just got a bunch of magic potions and stood over this trap door that's literally like in the corner of this storeroom, kind of very easy to miss, and like boxes are stacked around it. It's in the corner, and so it's kind of a neat presentation because you feel like you found something secret, And I think the tag, the pop-up tag on it says hidden area. That's all it says.
Yeah, nice.
And so I was like, God, man, it's got to be here. I've scoured every other part of the arena, and unless I've missed something, this is the last thing. And so I finally cast that spell, and I get in, and it's a whole underground complex where these people are living, and it's them.
Amazing.
And I found them, and like you walk in, and they're like, "Yo, what's up?" And we're like, "We're the Morag Tong," and actually, when I get to the main person who's like in charge, who I've been searching for, again, I came here because in Balmora, that's the chapter there, the Morag Tong chapter says, "Well, you got to go talk to this person." And so that's why I came here. Finally get to him. And he's like, "Yeah, we've been watching you. We've been waiting for you." Like there was this sense that, which is, it's all nonsense. Cause it's like, of course everyone has been watching you.
But it's good writing.
It is. It makes you feel like you've, and I finally get here, and there's like
it works if you follow one line of it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Because the fighters were probably also watching me.
If you do all of them, I mean, it's like playing The Walking Dead or something, and picking the various options and seeing like, oh, I see how it comes back. Like it comes back.
Reading every page of a Choose Your Own Adventure book.
Exactly. It's like that. It's like it has to find a way to not be combinatorially explosive. So it's like, there are these tricks. It's very similar. Like you get to see the wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah. Which, to the point that I always think about this as a side note now, because I mentioned Choose Your Own Adventure. Like I'm one of those kids that, because I've always been a completionist in everything like that, I would read every page of our Choose Your Own Adventure book.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It's
page
like
57. You shouldn't be on this page. How did you get here?
Yeah.
The UFO descends and blasts you into nothingness or whatever.
It's so dumb. It's like defeating the purpose. But anyway, so I got down there. There's like, I don't know, 8 or so people down there, and it's a, they have, it's civilized area, like beds and tables and food, and they're literally, it's just a hidden area with the secret society down there. And there's a book on the head guy's table that's called the Black Hand, or the Black Glove, which is what they call themselves. And then I was like, oh, this is even better. And I'm reading about the Black Glove, and so I'm obviously I just would have started, so I couldn't actually barter with the people or get spells or training from them yet, because I'm not high enough level. But I did talk to the main guy, and I became a member. And so I immediately started going on. They just started giving me writs to go assassinate people. And so it's going around. The first couple were in Vivec itself. And so those are fairly easy to get to. And I'll get to that in a second. But then after doing the first 2 or 3, then they started sending you outside of the city. And so that's where I started using the boat system and trying to go long distances to basically just beeline my way to these kills, essentially. And there's
so did they give you map markers for them? Is that why?
In some cases, there was a map marker. In some cases, and in others, it was like we talked about last episode, where they're like literally giving you directions. Like, go to this town, go swim to the coast, south or northwest, southwest, and then walk to this small peninsula. You'll see a yurt there. He's in the yurt. And I'm like, what?
The yurt sanction. This is a Trevanian novel. Wow, that's a deep cut from the 70s.
Oh yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. But there was a yurt there, and he was in there, and I killed him. And it's like, and it was on a little peninsula southwest of the town, and I had to swim, across the ocean to kind of, like a bay area to get there. And it was the directions were accurate. But then in the one I'm on now, they did give a marker to a local village, and then they gave you directions from the village. So they gave you a marker there. But all the ones in this city are like, go to this district and then, talk to these people and find them or whatever.
Yeah, I've had a huge mix with that. Sometimes it's go to this town, and I'm like, okay, where's this town? And it's like, well, it turns out if you go and talk to the right silt strider person, it's one of their points. So it's like they don't tell you that that's true. You just know the name of the place. I'm like, I think it was Aldruth or something like that. And I was like, I don't know where that is. And I happened to be back in Balmora. And I'm like, I should go back to Vivec City. I'll take a silt strider. If I could. I think I could. And then it's like, one of the places you can go from Balmora is Aldruth, but not from Vivec City. So it's not like the silt striders cover everywhere you can go.
No, and the boats don't either.
God.
No, the boats
don't.
And it's so the only thing I've looked up, and this is just I'm admitting on the podcast, is this. I found a map that's sort of like a metro map for the public transportation in this game. And because I just didn't want to write down and memorize, because actually when you take the boats, it's like it can be up to 50 gold a pop, like 20 to 50 gold. And so when you have to bounce around to 5 locations and you miss one and you don't remember. So I didn't want to write them all down and so I just found a map. And so I'm using that to, but otherwise, yeah. So, but it is, you have to kind of chain the right ones together because they don't all go in a logical fashion.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I've had that where it's like, it's nowhere I know about. But I kind of luck into it, right? I had one where I think I was walking, might have been walking from Vivec City back to Balmora just to uncover more of the map. I can't remember how it happened, but I come across this guy and he's like, I want to go to Morag Moor. And he's like, and I'm like, okay. I guess I could help you. And he's like, I'll show you where it is on your map. And I'm like, okay, I'll help you. I mean, cool. You'll show me where something is on the map. That led to the most Bethesda hour and a half I've had. Even when I worked there, we had kind of matured the pathfinding systems beyond, what they had before. And I tell you, man, it was a ride. So I went and I got down to this, I'm looking at the overland map and it's, the world map or whatever. And there's not a lot of detail, but it's like, well, I guess I've silt stridered to this one place. I had basically a quick mage or Fighters Guild quest to just go to this place and come back. I went and, I don't know, bribed somebody and came back or something like that. And so I have this place on my map. So I at least know that it should be possible to get to this place. It's a place called Suran. So I'm like, okay, from where I am, I should be able to get to Suran with this guy. Except that I got down to a lake and there was a little dock, but there's no stairs, there's no boat. I can see Suran across the water. And I'm like, how do I get there? With this guy? And I'm like, and he's just following me and he's pathing, to follow me. So I'm like, so I need to kind of stay on paths that he can go. Like I can't do, there's a sort of Bethesda game thing where it's like you can get to like a mountain and kind of like jump your way up and around it and like cross over something where you're not really supposed to, but you can. I mean, it's sort of like Breath of the Wild. It's the same thing, right? It's got that stamina system, and it's like, well, if you've got enough stamina, you can pretty much go anywhere. And this is kind of similar in that way, but the NPCs can't. And I know that. So I'm like, okay, well, let me do some experiments. Okay, well, it turns out he can swim. That's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of slaughterfish in that lake, though. And so I'm constantly doubling back and like trying to kill all these fish that attack the guy as he tries to cross, because the AI systems generally don't really care about the player. Like they just go after whatever's nearby, which in this case was this guy I'm supposed to be escorting. I finally get him across the lake. We get up onto this little thing of land, and like I can jump up onto this thing that gets me into Suran. Except that he can't jump up this like 6-inch ledge from like the ground to like the town. Like there's just this tiny little space where I do this little hop, and like I'm walking around Suran trying to figure out where to go next, and I like turn around and the guy's not there, and I'm like, oh no, like did he get eaten by the fish? Like I don't know. I don't know what has happened to this guy. So I go out the main entrance. I go back down to the lake, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll swim out to where I last saw him and see if he's dead. I'll reload a save or maybe just abandon him. I don't know what I'll do. And I swim down, and I'm like, well, I don't see him. I get attacked by another fish. I come up, and I'm like, well, I'll get back into the town the way I got up into it before. And I come up, and there's that guy, and he's just pacing back and forth like 6 feet along the wall because he can't do the little hop to get into the town that I did. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I go up to him and I like wait until he like reattaches to me and is like, okay, you're my focus again. I'll follow you. And we go back into the water. And we go back up and we go across this little like inlet. There's another fish that attacks. We can take care of that. And we go up. He actually attacks. Like, I mean, it's, he's helping. All of this to get to a place I've never been. And I'm just like, well, that's cool. Then I'll know where that is. And I go up and we finally get up into there and we go into Suran, and I can't find a way out of Suran that takes us in the right direction. And I'm like, oh man, like this, because there's like all these mountains around it. I'm like, oh, I guess we have to go out. So I take him out in the wrong direction, and there's this long bridge, like this, the Temple of Doom bridge, where he cuts the thing with the machete. Yeah. Like it's like a bridge like that, and kiting this AI across this bridge, which is like in games like this we have like a capsule or a cylinder, right, that represents your character, and with a player that's fine because the player's just going to find the room that they need, but with the AIs, they get stuck. They get caught up. They hit a thing and then they just stop because they're like, oh, I can't move, but I'm trying to go in this direction because they're trying to come to me. And it's just one of these early problems that you see in games like this. So I get, I cross this bridge and I go into the next little area and I get attacked by something. I turn around, the guy's not there. And I'm like, oh my God, and I go back and he's like 4 feet onto the bridge and he's stuck. And I go out to the bridge. I spend all this time. I finally kite him across the bridge. I start walking and it's like, there is no way back across that water that I had got him across in the first place to get to Suran at all. And I'm like, oh no, there must be another way out of Suran. And I just didn't find it. And so I had to re-kite him across the bridge.
Oh my gosh.
In the opposite direction. Because I spent all this time trying to find a way, and it's just like, no, everything goes like back towards Balmoral, totally opposite direction. And I'm like, oh my God. Turn around, go back, go into Suran, and like do basically the maze thing where it's left hand on the wall, follow around, and finally find, oh, actually, if you go around this building, as it turns out, that's not really marked, there's no sign, it takes you to an exit to the city. It's like there's no road, like we talked about last time, where it's like these sort of paler spots where there's sort of a road. No, it just happens that if you dig around long enough, you'll find your way out of Suran into an area that sort of this guy can traverse. It was like that for an hour and a half. I mean, that's like 45 minutes of it. So there was another 45 minutes of just like getting to wherever he was trying to go, Morag Mon or whatever it was, Morag Moor, Morag something. And I just kept at it.
Yeah.
I just was like, I'm gonna do this. Like at this point, I'm going to see the jank. I'm just gonna see it all. I want to see everything that's here and understand it. Thankfully, when I got there was a silt strider and I could get back to Balmora, which led to my next thing. So we'll get to that afterwards. But that was my like, what am I doing with my life? Like, moment of like, I'm just trying to connect this NPC to some other NPC who's at this location. Like, I'm not going to get a lot from this. This is just, I really just want to know where the location was. And I guess now I know how to get there. But it was.
And you had to physically walk in. Like, you couldn't use a silt strider. He doesn't like come with you. No, I don't
think so. That's my impression. I mean, I might be wrong about that, but that was my impression. Like,
that makes sense. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
because I think what would happen is I would get there on the silt strider. He wouldn't be there, and he'd be trying to path to me through the world.
Oh yeah,
right. I mean, I'm the guy who in Fallout 3, like I was working there, and I was like, I had at that point played a lot of Oblivion, and I was like, I want to see, where the game is now, like where the systems are. And I went, and there's a point in that game where you meet your dad, spoilers, and your dad's like, okay, we need to get to such and such a place, because they have some technology or whatever. And I actually went, and he'll just path there. He'll just run through the world, because that's how the systems work in the games. He'll just run through the world. And if you're not around, he kind of doesn't get caught up on stuff because it's abstracted a little bit, like, and it's more just like kind of math, like how long it takes to get through places and things like that. And everything's kind of mathematically connected. But if you actually follow him, he gets caught up all over the place. And it's because you're there, because all the extra geometry is there because you're there.
Yeah.
Right. And so all this additional collision data is there, and you're just like, just making it worse. And it's amazing to play a Bethesda game that way, where you're like, no, meet me at this place. I think it was Rivet City. We got to go to Rivet City, after you've saved him from this place. And it's like, okay, we'll get there. I'll meet you there. And you can follow him. Like, that's my thing, is when I'm working on a game, it's like, what did the designers expect me to do? Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this other thing, because that's probably what breaks the game, right? I'm always like QAing as I play, and quality assurance. I'm doing quality assurance while I play, and it's so I have some like expectations of how the systems work, and I was like, if I abandon this guy and get on a silt strider, he's going to take off. And I will never find him again, because he's pathing through the world and getting stuck in all these ways, and I have no idea which way he went. So it's like,
that would still be awesome though. Like if he just eventually popped up some point.
It just like, I just happened at like 60 hours from now, I'm like, oh, look, it's this guy. I know exactly where your business partner is. Let me take you to her.
He's been following you the whole game, trying to get to you, like every time you fast travel.
Oh, that would be something else. Like, yeah, he's like trying to get to wherever I am. So he like walks, along to the side of those lava pits, and was like edging his way along them. Like, I saw those cliff racers get stuck, like when I was on a bridge, they got stuck on the other side of the barrier, bridge barrier. I mean, it's just,
I mean, they're definitely, you can see them, they're definitely pushing this engine in this game. You can just see like it's busting at the seams as far as like what, like the flying creatures is a good example, right? Because it's just like, wow, man, those things are not doing well. with the life. I mean, speaking of which, so
that's something I don't think we even tackled. We were tackling it in Fallout 4, I think, like to make the
good flying stuff.
Because there's all these like little flying robots and stuff. You actually saw one in chat today. That just,
I played 3,
and the mosquitoes, whatever the mosquitoes are called, the giant mosquitoes, blood flies, that have to like fly over ground, and you don't want them to like follow the contour of the ground and then maybe get stuck on rocks. It's like you want to, so we were still trying to address, the reality of issues like that.
Yeah.
20 years on from or I guess 15 years on from this game at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying you should continue with
I mean, I was going to describe my first assassination, and
you never forget your first.
No. And I mean, what has dawned on me since, and I actually need to test this out next session, is I need to go back to, now that I'm a member, I should have probably gone back to Balmora, and talked to I hope that if I go there and talk to the chapter there, the Morag Tong that are there, and they'll give me quests, because what I did is I started to do the quests, the writs from the Vivec City ones, and very immediately realized that I'm way in over my head. Like, first of all, I kind of cheesed my way to get into this place to begin with. I think it's hard to get into on purpose. They want you to be at a certain place. Second of all, I think they were a little side-eyeing me of like, are you sure you want to join us? Because we typically need people to be, like I don't think there was a level requirement or cap, but I think they were kind of like, you're a little young you're a little short to be a stormtrooper. So I did it anyway. So they allowed me, which is nice, because I think that the fact that, as we talked about, I think in the previous 2 episodes, like, this game lets you kind of do anything if you try hard enough, and they don't really limit you, which, is very rare these days. And so I appreciate that I could find a spell, I could find my way in, that they're allowing me to do this. And so what happened on my first, I think the third assassination was pretty easy, but the first 2 were pretty rough. And then like the fourth one, I had to kill 2 people at once. A long story. I mean, life of an assassin. Anyway. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you've hit a lot of men yourself. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Morag Tong, they are honorable assassins. They're supposedly going after, how did they put it? They say the law won't. We take out those who the law won't. And so supposedly we're sort of the Robin Hood-ishness of assassins guilds, I guess. Anyway, we're not the Dark Brotherhood, at least, those jerks. But anyway, so
they're just in it for the money.
Well, I get to this bar in one of the buildings, one of the big.
An assassin walks into a bar.
Walks into a bar. Yeah, cantons. What are they called? Cantons.
Cantons.
Anyway, and the dude is just standing there, and there's other NPCs around. Right, they're just minding their own business. And of course, now I'm flagged with this writ, so the logic of the game, they know that I'm supposed to kill this guy. I talk to him. I think he kind of gives me the cold shoulder, which I think they probably turn on once you have this writ, of course. So you can't really talk to him too much. I was hoping I could like talk to him to get him to go to a dark alley someplace so I could take him out. But they're very focused on what they say are honorable kills. So I don't really know what that means exactly in the context of the game. But I was like, okay, in my mind, an honorable kill is I'm standing in front of you and we're going to do this, right? And then like, I'm not going to backstab you. I'm not going to like poison you or whatever other shenanigans I could do. We're just going to do this. He was very powerful. It was very, so he immediately fireballs me. One shot, I'm down. So I'm wow. Oh no, this isn't going to work. And so then I go into cheese mode. Like I take him out. I successfully assassinate this fellow, and then in some cases, the NPCs in the bar would attack me, but like somehow I got to a state where they were okay with me killing this guy in front of them, and they left me alone. So I basically did the door trick. I would basically, I feel terrible, but I was like, no, I finally joined these people. I don't want to let them down. I need to kill this first kill because I'm a master assassin. And so he would wind up on the fireball. I would leave the bar, and then I would go back in. He would wind up a fireball. Then I'd leave the bar. I did that multiple times until he ran out of mana and magicka. Uh-huh. Then he pulled out his sword. His sword also hit very hard. So then I just rinsed and repeated that. Would go out, heal myself, go back in. and I eventually got him down.
Wow.
Totally cheating.
The Darth Vader approach.
Yeah, it's like the worst assassin of all time, where I'm just like, hey, and then I leave, and then I come back, and then I over here, you know.
That is a callback to our QA episode for TIE Fighter. So go.
Oh yeah, exactly.
With Aaron.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've taken a very different tack. Is that like I will, as the fighter guy who's like going out to do these things, I will try not to kill people. You know, because I'm not an assassin, right? I'm out there. I'm sort of an enforcer in a way, I guess. I mean, it's like
that's what they call themselves.
This person owes money, right? And it's like there's times where I'm like, maybe I'll just pay it, like you know, or I'll go to somebody and it's like, you know, this person needs to pay. And it's like a member of a Kamana Tong which is the old school thieves guild, in this town. In this case, it was Eldrin or whatever it was, Eldrin, whatever it was. And so I'm there, and I'm like, I go in there, and there's all these other thieves around that are this Kamana Tong, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna just wipe the floor with me. They're just gonna kick my butt. And I go and I have this conversation with this guy. First, I pay him off a little bit, make him more friendly towards me. And then I just walk through the dialogue tree, and he's like, what if I just left town? And I'm like, oh, very Miller's Crossing of you. But maybe Miller's Crossing is the right, you know, and it's like, okay, I'll do that. And I pay him off, and he leaves town, apparently. I go back because it doesn't happen immediately. So I don't know. If I go back, maybe he's still there. I have no idea. But I go back to the Fighters Guild, and they're like, all right, yep, you silenced him. That's all we really cared about. And I'm like, okay.
Interesting.
All right, well, yeah. I will pay my way through any number of things now, because if I can, I mean, why not? I can carry a lot of stuff because I'm a kind of a beefy fighter character. So like I go into these dwarven places and I'm like, oh, I'll pick up a bunch of stuff that's like worth a lot and I'll just sell it. I'll just trade it away. Now I've got, you know, oh, look, I've got 3,000 gold, you know, or whatever. I can just afford these things. Right.
Right. Well, so does that, so that's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's actually good to hear that there are definitely various options in certain cases, or at least two options. Is there non-lethal damage in this game? Like, can you knock somebody out, or do you?
Oh, I don't know if this is true of Morrowind, but I feel like you can punch people in Oblivion maybe, and it's not lethal.
Also, I think when they punch you, if you're out of fatigue, then if you're fatigued, you will fall down.
Yeah.
And I think that only happens with punching. So it's like, that's interesting. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean,
I think there is some weird mechanic like that. Like,
yeah. Because, like, they don't.
These games are filled with just the weirdest edge cases.
Yeah.
That are just.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. Like, I don't even know how we're going to. I mean, the funny thing about it is, like, I have no idea how do I finish this game? Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like you said, like as an assassin. Yeah. Well, I mean, at least now, because I spent so much time in Vivec just learning the city, meeting everybody, doing these side quests. Now, at least I have a purpose, right? That it has sort of linear.
I found my purpose.
Yeah, I'm assassin. Yeah, great. But the interesting thing about your point about the Fighters Guild, which, you know, it will be interesting to see if there's ever this option for me. But like because I've chosen to be an assassin, my only option really when I find my target is to kill them. Like I don't know. Maybe I'll be surprised and there's a time when I can talk to somebody and they'll be like, can you just disappear? And I'll tell them I killed you. But I haven't found that to be the case. I've tried. And every time I talk to them, they're like, either they're like, you look shifty, or you're here to kill me. We're doing this, you know, like they triggered that state. In fact, the second kill was in an estate in the Redoran. Redoran, is that how you say it?
Redoran, Redoran.
Okay, yeah, Redoran, yeah. And I go into this estate, and like this, you know, person's here with all of their other family members. It's like a noble family. I'm killing this noble who had done some bad stuff apparently. And, but when you start attacking him, the rest of the family comes after you.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had to take out the whole family.
I mean, there had to.
There was no option. I tried to figure out if I could get him to leave. But
you must be quite deadly.
Well, so it's in some cases. I will say though, I'm using the door trick quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
And so like some of the family members were easy, and then when I had to take down the other two, then the third one was two magic users, and they were like. Yeah, it's really interesting because like I've walked by these people, right? I've met them before I joined the Morag Town, and then I come back to their house and I'm like, oh no, this time I'm here to kill you. And it's just but they were all there before. So it's really it's neat how it's not like they spawned these characters when I got the quest.
Right.
It's this is a persistent world, and these entities could have something to relate to your quest, or you just may never use them for any other reason, like these nobles that I had to kill for you, they may never be anything, right? They may never have a purpose for you. Or these two in temporary housing in the foreign quarter, there are these two mages I had to kill, and they're in there with some other people who were in temporary housing, just sort of like a fighter. I killed these two mages. The other two didn't attack me. They're obviously all strangers to each other. I finished killing those two, and I'm like, we cool? Is everything good? I talked to the other two who were there, and they're like, I don't know what you're up to, but let's just leave each other alone, all right? Just get out of here. Because it's like the two fighters who were there watching me do this, they actually had some content to react to me killing these two mages. And because they were like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Just don't steal anything that isn't yours, and we won't attack you, but you should go. And I'm like, you're right, I should go.
You're not wanted here.
Yeah.
It's time for me to go. Yeah.
They allowed me to do that. So, because usually I just assume everybody's going to attack me in the room, but it's not the case always. So, I don't know. It's a weird path. And then, like I said, they started to send me outside of the city. So now I'm using the boats to go literally around the whole. Like I haven't explored the whole thing, but I'm going to these hot spots and then beelining to this yurt in the middle of nowhere, to just take this person down. And then, the last one I'm on is definitely way over my head because there's like multiple enemies in this sort of cave complex, and one of them I have to kill, but they're all attacking me, and I have a hard time taking any of them down. So I think I'm just going to try to go back to Balmora and see if there's lower level. What level do you think you are, by the way?
I'm like 6 or 7, something like
that.
Maybe
Okay, I'm 6.
In that range. Because I went. So what happened to me was the other half of that was like at the end of that whole thing, I got to Moragmon or whatever it's called, and there was a silt strider there, and I couldn't find it and I was pretty beat up from this trip, which was like a journey. And I'm just like, you know what? I just want to rest. I'm going to go back to Balmora because there's a silt strider here, and I know I can get back there. So I'm going to go back there. And this was actually the end of my play session for the day. So I went back to Balmora. I went and slept and like saved and quit. And then next day. So the next day I wake up and I'm like, I don't remember. Like, because nothing's really very descript. Like you wake up in a room and it's like, okay, this is a room. So I walk around the corner and I talk to this guy. And I realize I must be in a guild, and they look like fighters. Okay, I'm in a fighters guild. And it turns out it's this guy who sent me to the dwarven place in the first place. And only because I've talked to him a second time does he say, oh yeah, I looked at that puzzle box and I found this key.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, wait a minute. And then he says Ankthar Band or whatever the name of the place is. And I'm like, so now I can get through that door that last time I was like, oh, I used that scroll of unlocking or whatever, unhinging. Mm. And now I actually just have the key, the straight up key to that door. Now, I will say it took me quite a long time, probably 20 minutes, just to find the dang door again. because
yeah.
it is the maps are not helpful. Like you can't tell like what doors aren't. It's not like you know, a Resident Evil where it's like you've gone in this, you've taken all the stuff, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's like here's a door. Like there's just little squares like doors that load into other areas. I go back there, I search all over the place to figure out where I'm going. And I go through this door, and now I'm in it with dwarven creation stuff. There are these mechanical spiders that they built. Wow. Because that's the thing with the dwarves is like they built all this technology and now they've disappeared, but nobody knows why.
They combine dwarves with gnomes.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So like you go in there's these spiders. No big deal. The spiders, they do have poison, but not a big deal. There's these, they're called centurion spheres, which like, it's sort of like a droidica. Like they roll up and they like unfold and like this thing comes up out of it that you fight, you know, that's got like a sword and stuff. And then there are dwarven ghosts, specters or whatever that I have to fight that I can only hit with magic. So good thing I'm a battle mage. And I'm just like, I'm making my way through this place. Ultimately, I find a chest that I use a unhinging spell on and like open it because I don't have any. Like I'm useless with a lockpick. And I open this thing and there's a key in it, and I'm like, great. What is? And I scoured this place. I'm like, what does this key open? And I think the answer is nothing in this dungeon.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy! Like how? I have a bunch of keys. I don't know what they do.
I mean, I get this key, and it's like ancient, you know, dwarven or whatever, dwemer, whatever they're called, ancient key. And I go back to the guy, and I'm like, maybe he'll tell me about this key, but he just tells me about these other dwarven ruins. And now I'm like, do I want to? Am I now in the dwarven ruin game? Like, is that what I'm doing now? Am I like going to these other places to see if this key will work?
Yeah.
While I'm also doing the Fighters Guild thing. And that is what, like, this is what these games are about to be. Is like, so, I mean, I think to a certain extent with Skyrim, we pulled way back on this. I think this is what makes Morrowind such a favorite. Is that there's any number of places where it's like, oh, this is the thing I do now.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm doing. Whereas Skyrim it's more like I walk around the world and stuff appears to me and I do it if I want to, you know, and there's a lot more like sort of, oh, you need to go to this place, I'll show you on your map. There's a lot more like
the sense of discovery here is like, it's
off the charts.
You have no idea what you're going to find.
That was literally just because I randomly talked to this guy because I didn't know where I was. Like I didn't realize, like I never would have talked to him a second time. Yeah, you know, when I turned in this quest, I was like, I turned in the quest. Okay, we're good. Like, I'll go see if I can advance, get some new orders. And it was just because I woke up. I also woke up and was like attacked by the Dark Brotherhood again, and was like, okay, well, I'll kill them. And I slept again to try to heal, and was attacked again by the Dark Brotherhood. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm just building up Dark Brotherhood, you know, armor that I can go sell. So maybe I'll just not sleep here. I'll go find an inn or something. It is just wild. It really is just a wild experience.
Well, and then
because there are just it's just like, is this? But the thing is, it's not like, no, this is the thing you're doing now. It's at every point you're like, is this the thing I'm doing now?
Yeah,
like you know, and that's a really different experience with a video game. I mean, video games are so very much about, and especially in modern days, are very much about like. You know, even the games that have a ton of stuff, like, you know, I mentioned an Assassin's Creed game earlier. Like,
there's still checklists. There's
the stuff. Like you run around and the stuff is just showing up in your map. You want to do this stuff? Of course I do, because I'm a checklist guy. I'm going to do all the stuff, literally all the stuff.
Witcher 3, right? Question marks everywhere.
Yeah, same thing.
Everything has a question mark. So you know when you've found something, and that you know when you're done with that thing. For the most part.
And here there are question marks everywhere, but they're just in the things that you read, you know, or interact. And like the question marks are in your brain. Like, am I gonna? It's like, is this the thing I do now? Like, is this who I am now in this game? Like, there's been points in this game where I've been like, did I actually want to play this game as a thief? Like, that's a thing I normally play, you know, because I'm the guy who hates to come to a door and can't unlock it, or a chest and can't unlock it. Like, drives me up.
It is fun. Yeah, I'm kind of pseudo thief. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're completionists, and that's the way to get to all the stuff, right? And so it's so in this game, I've already had this itch a number of times, 13 hours in or whatever, and I'm just like, oh man, should I start over? Like, should I be the thief? And I'm like, I can't.
No. I mean,
podcast. Like, I can't. I do not have the time to do this in my life. But at the same time,
there is the spell. I mean, didn't you say alteration is one of your schools? Or no?
Conjuration is, destruction is. I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
got axes, heavy armor.
Yeah.
Conjuration and destruction, and I have a fifth one, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, the thing I got is an opening. Yeah, the opening spell. I don't know if it works on chess, but I mean, it's like I just feel like they give you every option to do everything if you want to. It might be harder, but if you take that spell, you can get through those doors, I bet. And so you don't have to respec, but it's like, it's the everything game in a way. I just like, so when I went out to this last assassination that I went to, that the cave I was talking about,
alteration is one of my major.
So that's I can do that. That's that one. I mean, you have to find somebody to sell it.
I have to find somebody to spell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very hungry for any time it says my journal was updated, right? Because I feel like that's when I talk to somebody or find something or whatever, because I feel like that's a positive reinforcement to me as a gamer that I found something,
Sure.
But it doesn't always happen.
Here's the thing with that, though, that's also frustrating. There will be times where, so this just happened to me in the last hour or so of play. I got a thing where it's like, oh, this person owes a debt. Now, I mentioned to this maybe in pre-show. This person owes a debt, and you should go and get it from them. And so I read that, and I'm like, oh, cool, okay, well, I know how to get to that place, this also Aldruth, and I know where that person probably is. I didn't click on the debt
tag
highlight tag
hyperlink
and hyperlink, and because of that I didn't officially have the quest. And so when I went to talk to that person, even though I as a player knew, that didn't mean anything to the game because I hadn't clicked on the thing, so I didn't have all the information. And that's a weird like in a game that has a lot of reading, it's weird to have to read more when you're like, oh, I already comprehend what I have to do, and I had that happen. Like there was another case where, it was no big deal. I was like, go kill a guy. It's like, okay, I get it. I have to go kill this guy. And I showed back up, and they're like, oh, I see you've already killed so-and-so. And I was like, yes, I did, because I read what you had to say.
Yeah.
But this other person where it was like this debt, is like, she won't even tell you about the debt.
Yeah.
Because you haven't clicked through on the other thing. So I had to I made another round trip back to Vivec City to go, spent another 50 gold or whatever to go do that, just to click a button in a conversation to get the quest to state to advance or whatever. So it's
well, I had also sold, which I think I remember this being a thing in this game and maybe a lot of the games, but I had sold a quest item that I'd gotten that I didn't realize. It was a book that I was supposed to deliver to somebody, and I had sold the book. Luckily I had marked where I sold it for some reason, because I added a tag to the map. I was like, I sold some books here, I might want those books someday, so I'm going to mark this. Luckily I did. And so I got to the place where I was supposed to give the book back, or give the book to this other, it was basically a FedEx quest. And I didn't have the book. And so it didn't trigger the right lines for, or hyperlinks for the person who the book was supposed to be given to, because I didn't have the book in my inventory.
Right.
And so then it dawned on me, it's like, oh no. And so I had to go back to the book. And then so there's logic like that where, I mean, in modern day, as soon as they would have told you to kill that or to get that debt, they would have put it in your quest log. They wouldn't make you do something else to make it in your quest log. They just would have automatically put it there. So
they would have put it in there. And the book would be a thing you couldn't sell.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why I've never finished Fallout 2. There's like a gadget or gizmo, or there's some term, a what's it, you pick up this thing and it's like, you pick it up in a place and it's actually worth a lot of money. And both times I've played that game, and this is like, 20 hours in, that it's like, oh, in order to get into this location, you can pay tons of money to bribe the people that I don't have, the guards, to get in. Or you can go in the back way. You just need this gizmo. And every time
I think I remember that, yeah.
Every time I've played the game, it's like, I sold that gizmo. Somewhere in the last 20 hours, I sold that gizmo. Yeah. I have no idea where. Yeah. Like, no idea. And that's where those games end for me. And I'm just like, oh, there's no way through this? I guess, my way through is I go back 10 hours of stuff. Like,
yeah.
We're not even reloading. Just like, I just go back to every place I can remember I've been. I'm going to miss it. Like, my odds are not good. One of the things I think that this game does well in that regard is that there's often ways through things where it's just like money will solve the problem. As a Fighters Guild guy, it's like, you know what? I can just pay somebody till they like me enough to tell me their story.
Oh yeah. So how do you, is that persuasion? How do you do that?
Yeah, persuasion, and you can just
pay.
You can try to do the mini game. I think there's the mini game part of that. I'm an orc. Like, I start off with no personality, basically.
Yeah.
A real commentary on orcs.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels a little bit misaligned, but anyway, I'm sure there's some very nice orcs out there.
I mean, I think orcs are going through a renaissance as a
in D&D for sure.
days.
D&D is like reevaluating all of its stance on all of those things, but for a lot of reasons that this is not the place to discuss that.
No, but
it's a thing.
Yeah.
People should look it up though if they're interested, because it's a whole thing that they're kind of doing and thinking about, and like what
they're decoupling. Yeah, they're decoupling racial stats from races.
Yeah.
So
it's good to see that happening, I think, and anyway, I mean, I think there can still be cultural stuff, but it's like, I mean, there's always the interesting characters are often the ones that are on the margins of their societies, and your favorite Drizzt there is a perfect example. So anyway, point is, I have to buy my way into people's affections. So, and I just do. And you have the option. It's like, do the personality game. I think you can intimidate. I could probably do that pretty well because I'm strong and I have a big axe or whatever. But, and then it's like bribe 10 gold, bribe 100 gold, bribe 1,000 gold. And it's like, do you just want to spend the money?
Wow.
And the 100 gold is usually worth 10 or 15 points of personal relationship, and you do it a couple times and it's like, okay, yeah, we're on good terms. You're a good guy, Timmy.
Yeah. Wow. So. Okay, that's good to know. I kind of have been afraid to hit that persuasion button because I don't specialize in it, so I was like, it's just going to be like something I can't really engage with. But
I mean, there's a thing that you can do there that is not not being the persuader. Like, it's like, hey, I've got this other way to persuade you. Ching, ching, ching. So,
it's I didn't put this in my notes, but as you're talking about sort of the different alternatives to achieving goals, like, it feels like this game is. It's and I don't mean this literally, but I guess I kind of also mean it literally, or, like visually. It's a very gray game. Like, it's a mushy game. Like, things are mushy. It's like, you kind of like can do whatever. And, it obviously it has a very gray look to it. And I'm a little worried. I found in my boat travels, I've seen some pretty interesting places. I've sailed far and wide. But I'm a little worried that the variety of the game is going to wear on me over time, because it's pretty samey, out of necessity, as we maybe talked a little bit about. But visual aside, I mean, conceptually, it's kind of a great game, because it's like, well, it's not like there's a morality thing. You can become, I guess, infamously a criminal or something, because we don't really know how that rep stuff and bounty stuff works. But apparently I have a bounty of 80 gold, and if I ever get caught, I don't know why, maybe it's because of all these people I'm killing, but apparently if you're ever caught, you have to pay 80. That's how they log, or that's how they put value on your bounty.
You just have to pay the 80 gold, or you have to go to jail for some number of days. And so, like, in-game time will happen.
So what is the downside? Like, what is in-game? Is there's no timers, really, right? I mean, like,
I don't think there's I don't think there's I think it's sort of like
like
GTA
Fallout
3, where
1.
it's like it doesn't matter. Like I don't think it matters. I'm not sure about that in the game, in this game's context in particular, but I feel like it's like, yeah, you couldn't afford it. They held you for a number of days. I don't know if there's like a break out of jail kind of game, mini game kind of thing. Yeah, because that's such a trope in RPGs as well. It's like the four or five or how many people are in your party, like who are in the same jail cell, and have to break out from the empire, or big powerful thing X or Y or whatever. Yeah, I mean that's always a thing too. So
every jail that is in the game so far has a key sitting on a table.
Right.
Too, so it's like, well, should I take all these keys, steal them somehow, and then just in case? But
it's like, in case you need to break out later.
But it's like
the samurai. Yeah, so.
It's an internal logic, right? Of some kind that I don't know. It's just, it is baffling. It's just a baffling game, and it's just so. I don't know how to describe it, but it just seems like so mushy, kind of in good ways, in a good way generally.
So one of the things that we've sort of talked about in other RPGs is it like there's no DM that allows you the flexibility to do all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I think in this game, mechanically, it's very mushy because they want to allow you to do all the stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's like the approach is like, sure, we can't do a DM that customizes, and does for your particular situation some get out of whatever jail, literally. Like, however, all the jail keys are just lying around. Like, if you had those, you could get out for nothing. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's just the way that they approach it to say, you know what, we can't do the DM. We can't do a DM that reacts to what your actual situation is. But we could put all the things in the world that would allow you to react to your situation.
Yeah, it's all very object oriented. Like everything, there's everything has a purpose, or can have a purpose. And if you think of it.
And they're literally lock and key. Like not any key is going to work on that. Like I've been playing Dragon Quest Builders, and it's like you get to a point where it's like you can make a key, and that key just opens any whatever particular lock that you want to go to. It's just a key, right? And all the locks and all the keys are the same. You can use them in whatever order you want to. They're not named. In this game, every key goes to a specific door. So when I found this dwarven key, I'm crazy. Like, there's somewhere in the world that this key goes to.
It's so crazy.
And I'm just like, I'm going to carry around this key for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what's the door? So it's like that. It's like
I'm also just really interested to see like how they progress the main story or what have you, like especially because we're on such different tracks, and the Morag Tang, the leader of the Morag Tong, alluded to when I get to a certain level he will give me special instructions, that I assume are some obviously important missions and stuff, but it's like, does it kind of like eventually like intertwine somehow with?
I don't think it does.
So there's
so have you been approached by people who are basically like what's that airport sect, where they come up to you with
the Hare Krishna?
Yeah, Hare Krishnas. Like, have you been approached by the Dunmer equivalent of the Hare Krishnas?
No.
Yeah, so you haven't been touched by like the sort of main quest stuff. Because that I think has to do with it. Like, and I think at some point somebody's just going to walk up to you and like, have you heard the good word about Dagoth Ur? And you're going to be like, who the fuck is Dagoth Ur? Pardon my language. I'll bleep that out.
Bleep that out. So people are talking about that stuff with me, and I've like, there's a whole thing in Vivec City of these worshipers and cults and stuff. Somebody actually put something on my map called the Ghost Gate, I think.
Sure.
That's at Red Mountain, which is Red Mountain was part of the whole. Yeah. So they have a whole like cosmic horror kind of stuff with They actually literally use the word Dagoth. Well, I guess it's Dagon is who they're riffing off of.
It's Dagon, yeah.
But anyway, so there's definitely cult stuff happening, and I've found some of them, and they've attacked me in below the city and stuff. But yeah, okay. Well, so yeah, maybe they force it that way somehow. I mean,
yeah, I think it's more like you have the Dark Brotherhood after you. What's that about? Like, and you have people who just like will come up and kind of throw some spice in your face, like, here, do you know about have you heard the good word? Have you read, try our literature? Like, and so I think it's a subtle push. And actually, I'm not even sure. I mean, and don't you have a dream at one point? I feel like one of the times you rest, you have a dream. So like some of this stuff is kind of coming through in sort of a prophetic, chosen one way, which is very much like, a Bethesda story. There's a chosen one aspect.
Yeah.
But the one that you are is not a very specific one. Like you can be a lot of different ones. So you're the Dragonborn, but you could be a killer. You could be a saint.
I do regret. Like I'm definitely not spending the time reading the books enough. I just have chosen not to, because it's just
do not feel bad.
No, I know. Well, it's not about feeling. It's just that I usually like that stuff. I like to immerse myself in the fiction of things, and there's clearly a lot about the sort of like mythology and politics and and stuff that I think when I meet a certain faction, I might care more about them, right? If I knew more about them, but like that, there's that tent. I couldn't even call it a village, but the last assassination. The marker
with the yurt,
no, it wasn't. That was the cave one that I'm on now. There was like a cave complex with a bunch of like bandits or something. Pretty guys. And the marker they put on the map was this like camp, like a camp of tents with a community, and they very specifically marked on the map, and then the directions are from that location. But I'm wondering now that you're talking about sort of the Dagoth Ur or whatever they're called, I think the people in the camp are members of that sect. They didn't attack me, but I talked to them, and I was like, and one of the options was about a dream. Now that I think about it, holy crap. Yeah, they said something about a dream. And so I was like, you should go talk to the wise woman. And I was like, well, I'm not here for that. I'm going to go kill this person. I'll come back.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm business. This is a business. This is not a personal trip. This is not a vacation. I'm not here to see the sights, and talk to the wise women.
I'm on the clock. Yeah. So I left.
I mean, that happened to me. I'm just going to Pelagia or whatever it is, that one town. Like I just walked into town and somebody just accosted me on the street.
Wow.
And I was there accompanying somebody there. That was like my mission. It was like, take somebody from the Mages Guild there or something like that. I've stopped doing the Mages Guild stuff because they're already to a point where like, you're not a good enough mage. And I'm like, well, I can still fight. Check out this axe. So I've just kind of abandoned that stuff because I'm like, there's too much Fighters Guild stuff. Never mind, like there's a main quest, and like there's just too much stuff. So I'm just not going to do all of it. But it makes me think like, oh, this is why people spend crazy amounts of time, in these games. And I have I played 500 hours of Skyrim before it came out. Like I played like 350 hours of Fallout 3 before it came out. Like I get it. But this one, I think because there's more writing and less voice, it's even more like
it's cheap. It's cheaper. Yeah,
it's cheap, so you can put so much stuff in, And sure, there's some scripting logic for the quests, but the quests are mostly simple. So it's like quest logic is like go here, kill person, get thing, escort person. Like it's all pretty simple stuff so far. And it's just like, okay, I'll do that. And then I'll just go back and get the next one of the same thing. But it takes me everywhere, and occasionally I'm getting these threads of here's this dwarven key. Here's this place this woman has mentioned her brother went missing. And I'm like, I don't know where that is. You haven't told me. And I'm like, when am I going to hit that? I don't know. Like, I don't even know, like, my sense of what the language means is like, I don't know where to look. So it's like, oh, this is just another thing I might find someday. And hopefully I'll remember when I see it, like, oh, that's that word that began with an M.
Yeah.
So, you know,
it's gray. It's a gray, like they're vague about, it's weird. I mean, that's, I think, why I'm so excited that I have finally joined them, because the writs are very specific, right? Like I know what I need to do, and I can kind of stay on that course. But if that last one that I just said brought me to a camp that sort of intersects with whatever this Dagoth Ur thing, and that was intentional, that's
it did. And I'm certain that they did that intentionally. Like, I know that is happening.
Okay.
Because
they basically need every guild chain to cross over the main path at some point. But I didn't. Yeah, but obviously I didn't engage.
It's more that every place that you go might have overlap with other possible things. It's not that,
because this is in the middle of nowhere.
It's not that they're forcing anything on you. It's just that every location probably touches on 3 faction things.
Yeah. There's a Venn
or a main
diagram.
quest thing, right? And it's just always like, oh, well, this one has A, B, and C, and this one has B, C, and E, and this one has D and F. Like, and it's just they're all there. And actually, if you dig further, they probably also have B and C. Like, I mean, it's just like it's just that intermeshed, and it's just you can always pick up on those things, wherever you go. And because they're keyword based, there's also just kind of that hook of like, if anybody ever talks to you about X, Y, or Z, now that's just a word, Well, and anybody who knows that word systemically is going to be able to talk to you about it. You can just ask about it.
Right. Well, and that was the case with the Morrowind Tongue, right? I would find people in other places that would tell me about them, right? And then sort of zeroing, like you closing in the circle once I'm in the Vivec City, you get a little more information and you get closer and closer. But I mean, and speaking of which, your point about like the Venn diagram crossover map of stuff, there's somebody in Vivec City told me that I should go figure out what happened to the dwarves, and so and I think I actually have a quest to like go someplace to sort of like investigate this. It might have even been the Morag. I forget who it was, but they were being super like mysterious about it. But to your point, it's like, that's the dwarf thing, right? And I'm way over in Vivec City. There's, with no one talking about that stuff except this one person. So, and I mean, with every unresolved quest that I add to that list, it just, and the journal is so kind of cumbersome to navigate because it's linear. Even though you technically can sort by alphabet, but it's like, I'm not going to remember what letter I need to sort by. It's just, it's overwhelming. It's like, it's almost like you need to sort of do culling. You need to weed your quests, or you're going to get to a point where like, man, I'm just, for me at least, I just might get sensory overload,
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep killing.
I can see why this is a game that can feel like a thing that you abandon, because
you lose focus.
It's hard to know what your focus should be. Even it's like you say, because it's gray, it's like, well, where are what is the thing? And that's why I'm responding to like, oh, is this the thing I do now? Like, is this me now? Like, this is the thing I am.
Well, that probably can change too, right? This can be you for now, and then you can be a new you.
There's been a number of times where I've been like, maybe I should just go train up a ton on sneaking. Like, there was a person who's like, you should just sneak all the time. And I'm like, should I sneak all the time? Like, I don't even know what button that is. I don't know what key.
I'm trying.
Because I haven't done that at all. Like, I'm like, I run everywhere, and sometimes I'm jumping while I go, but like, I haven't done any sneaking. That's definitely not my character. But somebody said that to me. I was like, oh, am I sneaker now? Like,
why would they say that? That's so weird.
I think I was probably in one of the thieves guilds. So they were just like, you should always be sneaking, like, ABS, always be sneaking. And I just, didn't really pick up on it. So, all right. Well, I think we should probably put a pin in it there. We have a lot more Morrowind play.
I don't know what's going to happen. This is the most unknown, what do I want to say? The most, the cloudiest future of a series.
We can't read the tea leaves on where we're going on this one, so we're just gonna kind of take it where it takes us. And who knows? It could be like we both end up triumphantly doing the thing, and it could end up with like, yeah, and then I killed the last Assassin's Guild quest and I was done. Like, it's really like that's where we are. And honestly, that's where I think the games are. I think that's... So I talked to Richard Lamarchand, back in... It would have been like... It was after Skyrim, so it was like 2012 probably. And I talked to him and we were chatting at a party at GDC. And, Richard had worked at... Crystal Dynamics, where he got his start working with Amy Hennig there on
Soul Reaver, probably, or something.
Soul Reaver, and then had gone to work at Naughty Dog as well. And he's like, we make these narrative games, and there's the story, and like, how do you, with Skyrim, how do you like put people back on the path with the story? And I said to him, Richard, we don't care if people finish the main story.
Yeah.
And he just had this look on his face like, what? Like, it was so antithetical to how he had been building games, to be like, they have their own story. They go into this world and they have their own story. And he just was like, oh, it just was like for him, like a totally different sort of thing. And yeah, so that's why I'm like, to some degree, the games are what you want to make of them. And if you want to do the main story, that's there for you. But like, even after you finish the main story, you could just keep going. You can go do the other things, that's always available to you. Yeah. So it's a weird series. Well, we had all this email, but we've gone 70 minutes already. So I don't think we're going to get any email this week. Next time we'll try to limit our discussion of the individual weird things we're doing, and maybe come back to some of the systems or like how we feel we're being pushed back to things or whatever, or just where we are, and more of a temperature taking and less of a deep dive on the individual stories that we're having. We actually had a review this week. You know what? I will just go ahead and read the review. We also have a singing review, but I have to hunt it down because it's...
Oh, boy.
They don't resurface. So, but we do have a review. I'll just read this because we do love to get the reviews. This is from CPJK. I don't know if he's just kidding about being CPJK, but he says, I love this show so much. His subject was fantastic show. As a software developer with very little experience in game development, I always speculate about the technical and design decisions that went into the games I play, but it's usually through the lens of my own non-game dev work experience. This show gives me an inside perspective, and it's increased my appreciation of the games I play. If, like myself, you've ever found yourself 3 hours deep into a YouTube rabbit hole watching GDC talks on game design, despite never touching game development, this is the show for you. If you just enjoy playing games and like to think about what makes them feel good or bad, this is also the show for you. P.S. One wish list item. Occasionally, they briefly mention technical jargon more specific to game development without expanding on it. Without the same context, I need to pop out of the podcast and look up what they're talking about. Not a huge deal, and I recognize it can be hard to convey high-context concepts in an audio-only format, but it would be amazing if they sometimes stopped to explain more game development-specific technical concepts that are mentioned. So we will keep that in mind because that's a good specific, like, actionable.
Yeah. And you're not going to get that from me. So
we sometimes just throw out terms. Well, yeah, it's not even. I mean, it's technical in the effect that it's like jargon that we use. And
I see. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm sure I've used it.
It's not specifically technology like coding, but we definitely say things where, I'm sure
Craft.
we may have even done it this time. Yeah. That are just like terms of art that we just like, we know what it means to say such and such a thing. And so that's good feedback to keep an eye out.
Totally.
For. So thank you for that, CPJK. And of course, we love to get your emails at devgameclub@gmail.com. We have a whole bunch of them. We will start catching up, I promise. Like I said, I think we have a lot of this game left to go. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub. We can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end. And also, I'm not going to reveal it now, but I have a potential plan for some episode 300 swag that we're going to maybe mail out. I don't know how we're going to do it, if we'll do a contest or like a something, but we have some. I have a couple things I think that I've held on to for too long, and I need to let go of them. So I'll just I'll let that be there.
Wow, that's big. That's big. Okay, well, we'll have to figure out how we gather applicants.
Exactly.
We'll have to talk about that. He is not twitching this week. Well, he's always twitching a little bit. I don't know, it's his age maybe. But at twitch.tv/Tim Longo Jr., where he's been playing some Resident Evil Village. I'm looking forward to where you get with that. I watched last week as you navigated the escape from the cadre of weirdos and ran into the Duke and the sisters made out of flies. There's an awful lot going on in that section. I look forward to you coming back next week. Are you going to be back for President's Day?
Yes. Yeah, we'll be back. Okay. We'll be back in town by then. So
okay, good.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I look forward to it, and thanks for bringing your dog.
June, she couldn't hold out any longer. She knew we were about to be done, and she's like, "I'm out of here." So
it's my time. It's my time. Yeah. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and of course, our logo is by Mark Garcia. Have fun jetting about on a silt strider this week, and good night.
Good night.